Canada, as good as they have been, let's talk specifically about the Toronto Raptors members featuring for this Canadian team for a little off-season update to see how they look and what we can expect them to look like once we get to that NBA season. We are back at it again on Amateur Hour Clips, where we continue to provide you with Toronto Raptors news coverage and analysis. But over on this channel, we take the best highlights and segments from the main channel, Amateur Hour Sports, where we do live streams covering the Raptors even further and put them on this channel to make it a whole lot easier for you to consume the content. If you like what you see from this video today, make sure you are subscribed to the channel because we're always dropping content over here that you're not going to want to miss out on, especially if you are a Toronto Raptors fan. And also along the way, it really does support the channel if you smash that like button. Now, let's get back to the video. If you've been following the tournament at all, you know that RJ Barrett has been absolutely tearing things up. I mean, I did a full video about it on this channel, main channel, Amateur Hour Sports, because we saw how good he was in his time with the Raptors last season. He looked like a completely different player with the Raptors compared to what he was doing with the New York Knicks. It is rather strange that it's just such a stark contrast to his game. Who could have foreseen numbers improving to this level? We knew this was exceptional. We questioned how sustainable it would be. And the evidence that we have so far from the FIBA World Cup, or from the, not the FIBA World Cup, the evidence that we have so far from the Olympics is that it's pretty sustainable. I mean, here he is, first game, very efficient, 8 of 13, 23 points. In the second game, yeah, if you wanted further proof about the sustainability of Barrett's game, we had even more of it because in the game against Australia, following up that outstanding performance, RJ Barrett said, okay, 8 of 13, 23 points. How about 8 of 14, 24 points? Yeah, RJ Barrett is still doing his RJ Barrett things, even at this higher level, even in this more constricted FIBA rule level. You know, where RJ Barrett does his damage is particularly driving into the paint, getting to the rim at will. He's like a wrecking ball sort of figure, getting himself to the rim. In the NBA, there's a lot more spacing to do that. FIBA, not as much. It's a tighter three-point line. There's no three in the key on defense, so a little bit more difficult to do that. Nonetheless, RJ Barrett has still been performing. The catalyst and driving force of this Canadian basketball team, the men's basketball team of the Olympics, certainly is Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. There is recognition that the best player on this team is Shai. But based on the numbers and output so far, you know, as much as Shai has been maybe rising up in some of the biggest moments, RJ Barrett, according to the Hoop Hype's global rating, has not only been Canada's best player, he has been the best player at the Olympics thus far. Look at that. With a rating of 35 ahead of Shai, ahead of Victor Wembanyama, who has also been spectacular so far for the French team. Granted, I will say these statistics came out after Canada's game, before France played their second game, but I would find it very hard to imagine anybody would have surpassed RJ Barrett there. Nonetheless, he's been Canada's best player, and he potentially has been the best player so far at the Olympics and has been one of the driving forces of Canada and their 2-0 start so far to this tournament. They have already confirmed their place in the next round and can solidify themselves as one of the seeded players, largely as a result of RJ Barrett's play. Alongside the stuff we knew about him when it came to getting to the rim, I think what's also been very impressive to me, his shooting has still been good, looks confident as a shooter, and his poise. I mean, what a big moment to step up into. Canada's first appearance in the men's basketball event at the Olympics since 2000. He just looks so poised, so comfortable, and as a leading figure, we're really seeing him blossom. And we should see some of those similar sort of traits spilling over with the Raptors this season. So, you know, we have a start of question now for the Raptors, what his role is. You know, I consider that Immanuel Quickley, RJ Barrett trade for OG. I considered Immanuel Quickley as a blue chip piece. RJ is just the gravy and very good at that. But Immanuel Quickley is the guy I was focused on. Well, it's looking like RJ Barrett's the better player out of the deal at the moment, and perhaps arguments over RJ Barrett being the focal point of the Raptors offense next season. Now, Scotty Barnes is going to be, I think focal point's the wrong word. Scotty Barnes is going to be the focal point, but as a scorer, the first option, it could land on RJ Barrett's shoulders for his ability to just get buckets himself, find his way to the rim, and score for this team. That alongside, if he can continue to produce efficient shooting, wow, has RJ Barrett turned an absolute corner in his basketball in an NBA career and proving it on the international stage as well. But it hasn't all been excellent in the Raptors universe when it comes to Team Canada at the Olympics, because the other featuring player for Team Canada that is part of the Toronto Raptors organization is Kelly Olynyk. And I got to tell you guys, I'm not happy to report this. Kelly Olynyk has really struggled so far for Canada. No real statistics to comment on because he's had very short stints on the floor in the last 2 games. And the reality is Olynyk has just been looking like he's out of place. It's a real shame because he looked so good for the Raptors in the late stage of last season. Defensively, there's some issues. He looked a lot better when he wasn't the main piece anchoring the defense last year after Jakob Poeltl's injury. But I think what's worrying me the most about Kelly Olynyk is he's just so, like, this FIBA game's a lot slower. FIBA rules are a lot slower. Smaller court, like I said, more constricted defenses. He has looked like out of place. Off the pace completely. Don't really know what his role is. Don't think he knows. Not sure if the coaches know. It's just hard to pencil him in there. Canada were getting bullied in the paint by the Australians, particularly on Canada's side of the court where the Aussies were scoring at will in the paint, especially in the first half. Australia were 16 of 22 on twos in the first half. I recognize that Canada don't really have the rim protectors, the bigs who can handle that, so you kind of give up some stuff. But to try and combat that, they went with a 2-big lineup where Kelly Olynyk was at the 4, Dwight Powell was at the 5. And again, he just looked sloppy. He looked out of place, and it was limited minutes in the last 2 games because, yeah, he just did not look the part. And even though he's the honorary team captain for this team, not sure we're going to see a lot of him for the rest of the tournament based on how things have gone so far. Limited scoring touch to go with it. Had some opportunities, couldn't score. Yeah, just lost out there. So it's a little bit worrying. I mean, I'll take it for what it is. I guess the FIBA game can be a bit different. I mean, I think it should cater to Olynyk, and he was so good at the FIBA World Cup a year ago that it is a little bit confusing. But where I see maybe some worries is, okay, he's on the wrong side of 30. He's 33 years old. He just signed a 2-year extension with the Raptors worth about $13 million a year. It's a little bit more than I wanted it to be as far as a extension is concerned, as far as a contract value is concerned. But he's a vet, and he was an important player, like I said, last season for the Raptors. He was a good player last season for the Raptors. So, I don't want to go too overboard with Olynyk here, but, there is reason for some slight worries to settle in for what we've seen in the offseason. Is he nursing an injury? I'm not sure, but yeah, I'm not panicking, but, some slight worries are going to creep in a little bit based on what I've seen from Kelly Olynyk so far. But it is a talented Canadian team. They've been playing some really good teams in Australia so far and Greece so far. So, we can forgive some of it. But, yeah, it's a bit to be desired. So we'll keep an eye on him in preseason at the start of the season for the Raptors to see if any of this spills over. Wanted to give a quick shout out to a former Raptor taking part in the Olympics for Team Canada. That is Khem Birch. Yeah, it was a bit of a strange addition on the surface when you looked at him making the Team Canada roster, but a huge shout out to him because he has gone through so much in order to get back to this point. He's been dealing with a ton of injuries the last couple years. Out of the NBA, but refound his love for the game playing in Europe, and that was enough to earn him a spot on a Team Canada team that just really is lacking with bigs. Doesn't have size, doesn't have bigs on their team. Khem Birch has been able to provide that. In some of the pre-tournament games, they actually went with Khem Birch from the start because they just needed that size and felt more comfortable having that size out there. Hasn't had as much of a defined role at the Olympics, but that could stand to change after an impressive fourth quarter. Was off the pace in the third quarter, I'll admit. And in the watch party, I was saying, man, maybe sub him out. Came in the fourth quarter, got settled in, was important defensively, got a couple of rebounds, and had some key buckets other end. 3 of 6 from the field with 6 points. We'll probably see more of him in the third group stage game, especially after Olynyk struggles and Trey Lyles, who has also struggled coming off of the bench. Final player I wanted to mention is a player who actually is not at the Olympics with Team Canada. That is Chris Boucher. In the watch party, I was commenting on, I think Chris Boucher would be a welcome addition to this team, but because he's in a contract year in the NBA, perhaps he's sitting out to worry about that and staying healthy. That's not the case, actually. Chris Boucher wanted to be here, and according to this article here, he felt as though he was snubbed from proceedings. Take a look at what Chris Boucher posted on social media after he was omitted from Team Canada's Olympic roster. Not even like the actual Olympic roster. He actually wasn't even involved in the pre-tournament roster. It was like a 19, 20-man pool of players to earn a spot on the roster. He wasn't even included in that. As much as I feel like he would have been a pretty good addition to the team, it's important to recognize that Chris Boucher, as much as he is Canadian, he has never played for Team Canada, which I found rather surprising going through the numbers today. Chris Boucher has never represented Canada, so maybe it would have been a weird time to just throw him in at the Olympics, but he feels a little bit slighted. I feel like Team Canada could have used him, but I understand why the coaches would have maybe looked him over for the fact that he literally has never played for Canada. So the opportunities went elsewhere to a guy like Edgem, who's been such a significant part of the program for a very long time. Same can be said about the likes of Kem Burton. Same can be said especially about somebody like Kelly Olynyk. So not the best from Olynyk, but man, RJ Barrett is an absolute stud, and he's showing it at the Olympics. And hopefully he continues to do so, and hopefully it's a long run for Canada, and they go on and win a medal. If they do, RJ Barrett will be a big factor. Hopefully Kelly Olynyk can do a little bit as well.